So I want to introduce our panel of speakers today. First up, we have Hannah Scott, who is Senior Manager of Direct Marketing and Annual Giving at Children's Aid Foundation of Canada. And we have Aneesh Gowri, who is the Associate Vice President and Director of Strategy and SMS at MissionWired, who's one of our accredited partners. And finally, we have Michael Sabat, who is the Enterprise Account Executive at Twilio. We'll just jump into things. Michael, if you want to take us into your slides here, I can advance for you. So,
sure thing. Next one. So I'm from Twilio. I used to work at Engaging Networks, actually 5 years ago and 4 years ago I worked there, and I started at Twilio in 2020. So I'm familiar with both companies and both sort of systems. Twilio is a confusing company. I mean, it's important, but it can be a little confusing. The best way to think about what we do is communications infrastructure that's available as APIs. And that is definitely a mouthful. We'll explain a little of it, but we're kind of at this point, Twilio's been around since 2008. We are a bit of like everywhere. We've helped to digitize kind of the phone system is a good way to think of it. And so we work with millions of developers, and we are a company generally connected to developers, hundreds of thousands of customers, businesses, organizations that are customers, and everywhere in the world. So the prototypical example is when you call your Uber driver, you're actually calling into a Twilio line that Uber used Twilio to build a conference calling system. So you call in, it puts you in a conference, it calls the Uber driver, puts you guys in a conference, and then once you hang up, that conference is dead and that connection is dead so that you can't like call your Uber driver, they can't call you back, right? So we're the infrastructure that technology companies use to build communications like, Austin, if you'll go to the next slide, communications like text messaging. Oh, I changed it up, sorry. So this is our sort of size. Oh, weird, I left both those in there, sorry. Next slide, please. We are the infrastructure that does things like get a phone number anywhere in the world. That's the bottom line, the super network, right? Connect it for voice calls, SMS, video, right? So video communications or any other sort of like channel, like email. And then built on top of that, there's a lot of additional functionality I won't go into, but it combines data, use cases like getting your two-factor authentication code, right, anywhere in the world. And then at the very top, we have things like contact centers and automated workflows for different types of communications, right? Not worth going into, but basically anything communications focused, anything digital communications focused or data, Twilio helps developers build these use cases. If you'll go to the next slide. And so one of these examples is working with Engaging Networks to help Engaging Networks customers do text message campaigning, text message communications. And if it wasn't clear when I sort of like first said it, Engaging Networks handles all of the fun and interesting stuff and probably most of the questions you'll have. So your data is in Engaging Networks. The messages you're going to send are typed in Engaging Networks and are stored there. The drip campaigns, the content, the schedule, all of that is inside of Engaging Networks, and that's where you do the work. Twilio is the channel partner. And what that means is that we bring the phone numbers and the SMS connectivity, the gateway, to these workflows. If you'll go to the next slide, it explains it a little more in depth. So, like I said, you get phone numbers through Twilio, and there's different types of phone numbers, which we'll touch on in a second. Twilio delivers the message from Engaging Networks through Twilio to Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, Rogers, et cetera, whatever the cell phone carrier is. And then we support kind of that telecom aspect. This phone number, getting it registered, getting it up and running. This text message is coming out different than you'd expect. All of that, like, again, communications infrastructure is happening on the Twilio side. So that's generally the settings. If you want to go to the next slide, we'll talk about some of the options and ideas. So really the questions you're going to ask of Twilio or the decisions you'll have to make inside Twilio is starting with what type of number do we want to use? And I think Hannah's going to touch on this a little more, but Twilio offers short codes, long codes, and toll-free numbers. So let's see which one's the least confusing here. Toll-free numbers are 800 numbers, like you see on, old infomercials, or 800 numbers is the way to think about it. 800, 888, 877, or 887, whichever it is, and all of those. So that's kind of simple, and that's one option. Long code, 10DLC, um, those are both very confusing terms for just regular phone numbers with area codes, right? So long code, 10DLC, regular phone numbers mean the same things. Sometimes you'll also hear DIDs, but we don't have to get down to that level. Short codes are 5 or 6 digit numbers that are used specifically for text messaging. So with toll-free and long codes, you can also do phone calls over those numbers if someone decides to call back. With SMS, it's only text messaging. And that is sort of the heaviest, most expensive, best deliverability, highest throughput way to do text messaging. Um, we can answer any questions about this. I think, though, if you're talking to Engaging Networks about text messaging, they might have some recommendations on the type of number to use, and we can help with kind of the setup and all of that, or a discussion about what number to use sometimes. Happy to help. But they all have different costs, slightly different setup times, and sometimes different throughputs, meaning how many messages can be sent per second. Can you go to the next slide? One of the bigger changes that's happened in the last few years is this idea of 10DLC registration. So it used to be you could just get a phone number, a local number, and start sending text messages the next day. The carriers, about a year and a half ago, maybe it's been a long process, but between 2 years and 1 year ago, mandated that anybody that's going to send a text message in the United States needs to register their phone number. So short codes have to be registered. Toll-free numbers have to be verified. Local numbers, 10DLCs, have to be registered as well. And so this process can be a little confusing. We're here to help. But the overall recommendation is that any nonprofit, so any C3, is just going to register as a charity. And there's a little bit more of a single path to go down and do this. But essentially, for 10DLC registration, it's going to take a few days to a week to register a phone number or a group of phone numbers. And the carriers essentially want to know who is the organization sending text messages and what type of messages you're going to send. And for every nonprofit, you're going to say, we are a charity. We're sending charity messages. Even if you're not sending charity messages, because you're a C3, if you are a C3, you will say you're sending charity messages. Next slide, Austin. The other type of registration that's worth knowing at this level is toll-free verification. And this is more in-house to Twilio, if it matters. So we have a little more control over it, where 10DLC registration is third party. But again, you're going to submit a form that says, this is who we are, this is the type of messaging we're going to send. It can be a little confusing the first time through, but after that, it generally goes pretty quickly and is simple. But the big takeaway here is you'll have to register your phone number before you can start sending messages, and it will take a few days to do that. If you'll go now like three slides ahead, the other thing to cover, oh, sorry, one slide back. I'm looking at a slightly different deck. One more slide back, sorry, is compliance. There's a lot of edge cases, a lot of you can get very specific, very nitty gritty with compliance and our messaging policy. And it's all, quasi legal, quasi, terms of service stuff. But the big things to remember are you want to get consent to send a text message before you send a text message, right? So the big recommendation is right now, whether you're using SMS with Engaging Networks or thinking about it or have never thought about it, and this is the first time, what you want to do is add the mobile phone field to your forms and optionally a checkbox that says, sign me up for text messaging alerts, so that you're building that list and you can use it whenever you decide to start text messaging. So obtain consent before sending a text. If someone says stop texting them, right? On or opt outs. And then, understand the use case. This probably won't be too much of an issue with nonprofits, but there are some things that are just not possible with text messaging, such as talking about marijuana, whether it's medical or not, alcohol, hate messaging. The carriers kind of look at a lot of this stuff. And so if there are edge cases where you might need to, I work with hospitals that want to send notifications about medications that might be opioids, we can dig into those use cases. But the big thing is, keep it I don't know what the word is, away from the shaft messaging is the acronym. Last but not least is Twilio.org is my department. And we have programs, if you go to the next slide, Austin. So we have a team that knows more about our nonprofit use cases, right? So we have a special team for nonprofits. We have Impact Access Program, which is a simple sign up. It's self-service, and you get a credit in your Twilio account along with discounted pricing. And then, mostly on a yearly basis, if you're doing something that drives impact and uses communication, so it doesn't have to be Twilio, but a lot of times it is. We have impact funding for organizations, again, looking to drive impact using communications or digital technology. So check out the site. We do these on yearly cycles. It's very informal in terms of how our process works. So you can reach out to me or anybody at Twilio about that. I will leave it there. Turn this over to, I think, Hannah, are you going next? Thank you. And I'll be here for questions.
Thanks so much, Michael. And I'm going to hand stuff off to Hannah. If you have any more questions that are about really specific aspects of like the integration or anything like that, just know that you can reach out directly to me and I'll make sure you get your questions in front of the right person. It's definitely not going to be me. I'm not going to be answering the very technical aspects, but we have a great team that can. So don't hesitate to reach out if you do have any questions like that. If it's anything a little higher level that you want to ask Michael while he's on the call with us later at the end, feel free to do that. But really excited to hear from Hannah now, who is going to have this whole journey of getting started on all of this stuff we're talking about. So Hannah, I'll hand it off to you.
Thanks. And just confirming you can see the screen.
You're good.
Perfect. Thank you. So hi, everyone. I'm Hannah from Children's Aid Foundation of Canada. I thought I'd start just showing a little bit about our cause and our charity. So Children's Aid Foundation of Canada is Canada's largest charity fundraising for children, youth, and families involved in the child welfare system here in Canada. So we support children at risk of entering the system, children and youth currently in the system, and those who are transitioning out when they age out around 16 to 19, sometimes as old as 21. So we're supporting supports across all of those, working really closely with the youth who have been in foster care or in other group homes or just basically child welfare in general to support them. So why did Children's Aid Foundation of Canada choose to pursue SMS as a channel? There's so many different reasons why, and I'll take you through some of them. So one is that we wanted to be early into the market. There's not many Canadian nonprofits in SMS right now, and especially not in the child welfare space. So being able to be one of the first to get a lot of key learnings in this space will be really important for us down the road as we're going on our digital transformation. We also wanted to leverage the power of marketing tools and engaging networks. As you all know, if you're Engaging Networks clients, they have not only broadcasting through email, but also broadcast through SMS. And we just wanted to leverage the full power of that suite. We were also looking to reach people who aren't active on email or have really low open rates on email. We'll go through in a minute why SMS is so great that way. But we're able to reach people who either are not opening their emails, they're not looking at them, or perhaps they open them and just delete them immediately. SMS is a little bit easier to get in their face. We are also looking to reach a new demographic of younger audience members. Of course, not younger people aren't always on email, but they are always on their phone. So being able to contact them that way is really important to us, especially as our donor base is aging and we're needing to build more people who care about our cause in the younger demographic. On a separate non-fundraising side, we also do communications directly with youth members we serve. And so we wanted to set up SMS to support on our programs in terms of having a more effective way to reach the youth that we serve with scholarship reminders, application deadlines, and any other pertinent information that we think they should know about. They're not always going through their email. And sometimes for a young person, their emails will change once they're in university or high school. So having their phone number and being able to contact them that way is going to be really important for us. It was also very cost effective, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. And it's pretty low barrier to entry. There's definitely some, barriers you have to go through to get into SMS, but once you're there, it's a really easy platform to run. And if you texting to our phone number, you will find out what the open rate is of SMS, and it's around 98%. Different places will say 95 to 99%. Either way, it's really high, exponentially higher than email. So being able to have that really high open rate is amazing for us in terms of getting our brand out there. So I thought I'd take you through a bit of our journey to SMS. So it started with some exploratory calls with both Engaging Networks and Twilio to kind of investigate how the tools would benefit our work. And one of the things that really made us want to take the leap was that Twilio does have the Impact Access program, and it gives you a $100 discount and then also other discounts. $100 goes a long way in SMS. Text messages are pretty cheap to send. And so being able to just have like low investment into testing a new channel was important for us. So once we're ready to move ahead, we got our SID, which is a unique ID for your phone, signed up for Impact Access, and then started setting up our payment and phone number in Twilio. We connected Twilio and Engaging Networks, which is a really easy thing to do in the extensions part of Engaging Networks. And one of the things that we really did spend a lot of time exploring was SMS opt-in processes and its implementation in Engaging Networks. I'll take you through some of the key learnings that happened there. But we had to review a lot of compliance regulations. We are in Canada, so it's different from the US in terms of what we're able to do because we also have the Canadian anti-spam legislation. So always be looking at what is happening in your country before you implement. And then we also did Engaging Networks has a support academy, so we did a lot of trainings in there. Once we were through our setup and our work back schedule, we moved into pilot testing. So what we did is we basically set up a pilot program to send an email to 500 engaged emailers. So we picked people who are already engaged in our cause, and we asked them for SMS because we knew that they would be most likely to give it to us. And the reason why we did 500 people or less is because if you have 0 to 500 opted in constituents in Engaging Networks, it costs $0. So you don't have to pay for them to be in and opted in. So perfect for us, low investment to do that. We identified what keywords we want to use, and we'll go through that in a minute. And then we also did 2 pilot tests with this small group of folks. One was our annual report, which we sent over to them, and then they could click on the link and see it on their phone. And the other one was a quiz. So we asked them a question, they could type back true or false, and based on their answer, they'd get the response or the accurate information, and then another question. And so this was a way to kind of test not only are people opening and seeing our text messages, but are they able to respond and engage with us? Once we were happy with all of that, we moved into the launch phase. And so to do that, we basically sent an email to our entire email file asking them to opt in for SMS. We positioned it as this is a great new way for us to communicate with you on timely and important matters. One of the things we find, especially in our file, is people really care about having first access and being able to know what's happening in the child welfare space. So that was a good position for us to take. And then we also added the SMS opt-in to all of our lead generation forms, our newsletter sign up, anywhere that someone might be giving their information to us for the first time. And we were able to do that right before we launched our 2023 holiday campaign, and then we were officially live. So I want to take you through some key learnings from the setup. So one is, of course, as I mentioned, using the 0 to 500 constituent base as a $0 package to pilot your program. It's a really important way to just figure out, does your file actually want this? Will they engage with it before taking the big step to make a bigger package? Another key learning for us was to pick a phone number that is related to our organization in some way. So for us, we ended up going with the long code phone number, which is not a 1-800 number, and it's not a short code where it's only 5 or 6 digits. It is just what looks like a phone number. And so what we ended up doing when I chose that number is I chose something that had a similar area code for us. So it's the Toronto area code where our office is located. And the final 4 digits of the number for our text message are the same 4 digits of our office number. So that way there was kind of a familiarity for people. And when they looked it up, it wasn't just some completely random number on the West Coast or the East Coast. It was something that they would recognize as being us. And then when we did that, a really important thing is to make sure that phone number is visible to your supporters. Add it to any email footers, add it to your website, your frequently asked questions section, your contact section. Make sure it's visible so that when people are getting texts and they Google the number, that an answer actually comes up for them and it's visible that it is you. We don't want people to think that it's spam and then unsubscribe. We also, as I said, spent a good amount of time investigating compliance specifically in Canada, and I think Twilio and Engaging Networks have a good resource for looking at what's compliant in your country, so definitely look that up. And then we also looked into the opt-in process. So SMS opt-in is separate from email opt-in, and you have to treat it differently. And you also have to disable Twilio opt-out handling so that Engaging Networks can handle that for you the same way it does your email. We also use as many keywords as you can think of and so many variations of them. So for example, to unsubscribe, you can text us stop in all caps, stop in only one capital letter, cancel, arrête for French users. We wanted to put every single keyword we can think of because people will get frustrated if they're texting back, don't text me or stop, and it's not working for them. I also recommend testing with your colleagues and test outside of your colleagues, your friends and your family. Ask them what they would do if they received this text. How would they react and get their perspective so that when you're setting up your keywords for unsubscribes or opt-in, it's inclusive of what everyone might think and not just what people in your industry or organization might think. Definitely do external quality assurance before you launch. And the last thing I did as a key learning for setup is set up a voicemail. So someone could actually call our phone number right now, and if they did without the voicemail being set up, it would just make a funny noise. It would beep at you. So we set up a voicemail so that when that person calls, if they do, they have an answer to their question. It talks about on the voicemail, it's an automated voicemail, just talks about, hi, you've reached Children's Aid Foundation of Canada. This phone number is only used for SMS. If you want to reach us, here is our actual phone number. And if you want to unsubscribe from these text messages, just text this number, stop. And that way, someone who might be frustrated if they're getting a call or they're just wondering who we are can call and get an answer for that. And then we started implementing. So here are some key learnings from that. So my recommendation is to launch with your most engaged emailers. These are the people who will opt in the first. They will open your text messages. They will give you key learnings. They will give you nice feedback. To do that, we use the engagement score function on Engaging Networks to identify who these people are and put them in their own profile. I would also recommend adding the SMS form field to any existing opt-in or sign-up forms in a barrier-free way. Always, in my perspective, the key learning, at least when you're starting your SMS program, is to make it optional because people don't want to be forced into providing information that they might not need. So you can see in the bottom screen that it's optional to provide our cell phone and to provide opt-in. Using SMS for urgent and last-minute requests for appeals works wonders. A huge one for us was December 31st tax time, texting people in the middle of the day, being like, you have to get your donation in the next 8 hours if you want your tax receipt. SMS is much more in their face than email, especially during the holiday time, so they are more likely to respond. We also did the same for Giving Tuesday. And then SMS is also awesome for engagement opportunities. So if you're looking to get people to look at your annual report or to engage in a quiz or to participate in an advocacy campaign, SMS is great for that because it's really easy for people to just do something on their phone and go back to work or go back to school, then open an email, read it, and follow it. Using emojis and GIFs, that is how people text normally. It kind of adds some personality into your SMS. It makes people feel more engaged when they open it, like makes it even look a little bit less spammy. So use any emojis and GIFs when you're texting if it's appropriate. Using keywords, you can have it set up so that if someone texts your phone number for the very first time, a response happens. So if you text our phone number the word donate or join, it'll respond and say, here's how you can donate, or here's how newsletter sign up, or you could even do text cookbook, and then you can get our free cookbook from that. So instead of you having to go to the user can come to you by texting something to your phone number. The reason why that we haven't done a short code yet is because it is a more expensive option, but short code is perfect for this because you can text donate to a 5-digit number. It's much faster than texting donate to the number that we have, but that is something we're going to move towards as we get our SMS program up and running. And that's really big for kind of out-of-home advertising for people who are on the bus, just to see your ads, see your phone number, and text a quick keyword. A huge one for us that took a key learning is that you have to make sure your constituent is entering their phone number properly. It needs to have, when they're providing their opt-in, the plus sign and the 1 in front of their cell phone number. So as you can see in the bottom right, we have pre-populated that, made sure that it states that it's required. And every once in a while, I go through our data and I clean it up. So if someone did delete it or they forgot it, I will add the +1 for them and then import the fixed data. So that's really important for us. Another key learning is to keep your content for SMS short and sweet. People don't have a lot of time. You know, you always get scared when your friend sends you a really long message. You don't want the same from a charity or a nonprofit. So just keep your messages short and sweet with a really quick call to action. And then the other key learning, and my last one, is to make sure that all your content is mobile optimized. There's nothing worse than getting a link and then going to that link and it looks wonky because it wasn't optimized for an iPhone or an Android. Make sure that whatever content you're sending out to your supporters is optimized for them to look at it on their device. And that is it for me. So I will stop sharing and pass it back to Austin.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that, Hannah. I'm sure we're going to have some questions. I know I have a few looking at some of the things you went over and just you're having to wrap your head around doing that. That's such a huge campaign to kick off. So, but before we kind of get into that, Aneesh, I'd love to hear your perspective. I mean, that's literally your whole job is just keeping track of these trends and the how-tos and everything in regards to SMS. So want to hand things off to you and yeah, we'll wrap up with Q&A at the end of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can share my screen here as well. But for those of you who don't know me, my name is Aneesh Gowri. I use he, him pronouns. I'm an associate vice president at MissionWired, as well as our director of texting. And if you're not familiar with MissionWired, we're a full service direct marketing response agency. We work with a number of nonprofits from No Kid Hungry to the ACLU to help them grow, launch, and optimize their digital and direct mail programs. And so when nonprofit organizations come to me, the biggest question that they're usually asking is, should my organization be texting? And probably 10 out of 10 times now, I'm saying yes. And in recent years, SMS has been the #1 area of growth for nonprofit digital programs. And some nonprofit organizations are starting to see SMS outpace email as their largest driver of revenue, with upwards of 3x times the response rate in big moments, including rapid response. And I know Giving Tuesday and year end are also top of mind for folks right now. So this is actually a prime time to be thinking about SMS for not only those campaigns, but for what it could look like in 2025 and 2026. And I wanted to call out an example from one of our partners here that we've anonymized, but this is a revenue breakdown in terms of their low dollar fundraising in their 2023 fiscal year and their 2024 fiscal year. And 2023 was the first time that they were really using SMS at their full capacity, making the smart strategic investments and using it at full scale across a number of their audiences. And looking at their revenue breakdown, SMS accounted for 5% of overall digital revenue that year. And just 1 year later, looking at fiscal year 2024, it was up to 10%. So we're seeing really tremendous growth on this channel. One, because they were an early adopter, and we're seeing a lot of opportunity here to really fill that space. But #2, it's just such a direct means of communication. Just like Hannah was saying, texts have open rates of up to 99%. And we've seen that while emails are kind of seeing lower and lower open rates as time goes on, and you're not really going to see every single donor open every single email, 90% of texts are opened within the first 3 minutes of getting them. So this is just such a powerful direct tool to reach your supporters. And the growth opportunity here, I don't even think we've seen what SMS can really do. So just huge, huge potential here in terms of fundraising and engagement with your constituents. So taking it a step back and looking at overall trends across the industry, we completed an insights report where we took a look at 200 million texts sent by 15 different nonprofit organizations in calendar year 2023. And we have a few insights that I'd love to share with you. So #1, nonprofits are sending 46 text messages on average annually. How we see this breakdown during the calendar year is that between January and October, we're seeing folks send between 3 and 4 texts a year, with November, December, where we're seeing higher rates of giving, with Giving Tuesday and end of year spike up to around 4 to 5 texts per month. So a little bit more backloaded concentration of volume, but a lot of nonprofits really are texting really consistently, and they're having it really mirror their cadence as if this was for someone on your email program. #2 here is 52% of texts for fundraising, so direct appeals asking for support, but 48% were non-fundraising. So there are lots of great opportunities to cultivate your supporters, to share back news stories or other donor impact reports or things like that, or even getting them to engage with your organization via surveys, petitions, or other advocacy asks. Number three, 4.5% of online revenue was raised via texting. I'd say looking back to 2021, 2022, this number was probably close to 0% or maybe even 1%. So this growth year over year has just been incredible for nonprofits. And I think this is a trend that's just going to continue. Because like I said before, we're seeing some organizations see SMS revenue reaching parity with email revenue. So again, really, really powerful tool for fundraising. Number four here is that we're actually seeing a 25% higher conversion rate during that January to October period versus that November to December period. One reason for this is just because volume is going to be lower from January to October, and you're able to really message on your organization's priorities. So a lot of organizations that I work with have specific giving days that might not coincide with the traditional ones that are across the industry. And so this is a really impactful time to reach your supporters, whereas November and December is a little bit crowded. But again, this is just telling us that this channel should be used day in and day out. And supporters want to be hearing from you via SMS. Again, it's the most direct way to reach these folks, but it's a way that they're really engaging with year round. It's not really just for rapid response or Giving Tuesday or end of year, where I think a lot of organizations start with. And this last point here is that we're seeing text sent after 6 p.m. have a 37% higher conversion rate than text sent before 6 p.m. And thinking about this not like a fundraiser or as a marketer, I think this makes a lot of sense. I know from 9 to 5, I'm pretty plugged into my computer. I'm working, I'm busy, and post 6 p.m. is really when I'm able to unwind. I pick up my phone, I'm checking Instagram or Twitter or whatever else. And when a text message hits, I basically looking at it immediately versus during the workday when so many other things are happening. So that sweet spot is really between 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. to reach your supporters, especially if you're putting a direct ask in front of them. So I'd actually love to bring Hannah into the conversation here and see if any of these resonate with you and your experience with getting out your first text.
For sure. I think one of the ones that I think resonates is the 52% being fundraising and 48 non-fundraising. We've kind of been very conscious of not only sending fundraising text messages because no one wants that person in their inbox or on their phone that's just asking for things. We are hoping that we can engage people more through SMS, and then because of that, they want to donate. So my recommendation and what I've been doing is, trying to do 50-50 of fundraising versus non-fundraising and engagement asks. And then another one is, the after 6 p.m., even for emails, open rates and deliverability rates improve in the evenings. And we've seen that's be true for SMS in addition to email. And then one of the things that Engaging Networks offers is the send deliverability, where it can go based on time zone for us in Canada, because we have 6 or 7 time zones. It's important for us that we can be like 6 p.m. and it's 6 p.m. for everyone, rather than just sending. So that's a new tool in marketing tools that we really appreciate, and it has improved our open rates for sure.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like a lot of nonprofits have distributed bases where you have a long contingent in like the East Coast and the West Coast, and you don't want to be hitting your California donors at the same time that you're reaching out to your East Coast donors. So that's definitely a big one as well. Love that. Great. And then taking a step back, there are a few things that every nonprofit should be thinking about once you're getting your SMS program off the ground. And I know Hannah and Michael also chatted about a few of these as well, but to get into some specifics here, number one thing, we want to know what kind of traffic you're sending from, and that's via short code or via long code. Like Hannah was talking about, a lot of organizations start with long code, and that's usually what I recommend. There's a really low barrier to entry here. It's not very expensive, and it's a great way to run a pilot program because you can get a toll-free number, you can register via 10 DLC, but the texting prices are quite low at this point, and the overall startup costs are quite low at this point. And they offer decent deliverability, not as good deliverability as a short code, but decent enough for that experimentation phase. Now, after you've done that, you've gotten your initial result, you've talked to your board and finalized your budget. That's a really good time to switch over to short code, knowing you're going to want to make a long-term investment. The folks who opt into your short code we've seen at MissionWired are often the highest value supporters to your organization. So we see them giving again and again, not only to texting, but also to email, to advertising, to your website. They really are high value donors. And that's for a number of reasons, but it's also that direct relationship that you're able to build with those supporters via a short code that you're not able to necessarily via a long code. The short code, that text is always going to come from the same 5-digit number that is 100% unique to your organization. You can do fundraising on it, you can do engagement on it, and you're really building a relationship. You can almost have a conversation by having them text different keywords and getting different information via that. That works especially well on a short code. Number two is I always recommend starting with what you know. We see the most successful SMS programs get off the ground by really mirroring their email and ad programs. So you can carry over some top performing creative from your other channels, and that's a great place to start. Of course, though, we recommend adapting it to SMS. So cutting it down a ton, you're never going to want to send a full length email over SMS. You're going to want to use your short links. And you're going to want to make sure that everything's really native to mobile, including the graphics that you're using, the videos that you're putting into your text, the GIFs, whatever other creative that you're using there should be fully mobile optimized. And that kind of perfectly transitions into my third point, which is it's good to optimize your first touch point, that text with your folks, but you should really optimize your entire program to be mobile friendly and mobile first. So make sure your website, any landing pages that you're using, and any other forms are mobile friendly, and also start collecting SMS opt-ins everywhere possible. So we recommend putting those on your website. If you're running ads on Facebook or Instagram, you should put SMS opt-in fields on those as well. So really any place that you can collect an SMS opt-in is a great thing to do. And it's a really great way to build scale and build up that program. So you're building your base with people who are opting in and really invested in your program. An opt-in is worth a lot, and it can sometimes be a time-consuming and expensive process. But like I mentioned before, it always will pay off because these supporters are so invested in your mission. So with that, feel free to reach out again, Aneesh Gowri, and you can reach out to me at my MissionWired email, and I can pass it back to Austin.
Thank you so much, Aneesh. One question on that first slide you shared, someone was asking the percentage on the pie chart. Was that of digital revenue? What was the, we were just trying to make sure we identified, because it looked like some great data there.
Yeah, absolutely. So we broke up our digital revenue into 5 major buckets: SMS, email, advertising, organic web revenue, and then revenue from our recurring donors. And yes, so this was all of their digital revenue. And you can see that really stellar growth in SMS, whereas some of our other channels might have plateaued year over year, but really, really stalled growth there.
Perfect. Thanks for making that distinction. This is great. Awesome. Okay, we've got a few questions here, and because everyone on our panel here is all different expertises, I think that there'll be an opportunity, if it makes sense, for everybody to jump in. But I'm going to start off with this first one here. It says, I've started to use SMS for my organization, and I have a few questions. How do you see open rates in your Engaging Networks reports? Do you consider delivered as opens? And I'll just kind of stop at that. We can speak more directly to how you view things within Engaging Networks reports, unless somebody here wants to share that, if you know. But do you consider delivered as opens? Does that resonate with you, Hannah?
Yeah, I don't think right now Engaging Networks has an open rate for SMS from my experience. It's just been deliverability rate. And then based on that, we've also seen a really high click rates, like 50 to 70% click rate. So if 50% are clicking, then like we have to infer that opening is much like in the 90s. So we're looking at deliverability rate for open rate. I don't know if Engaging Networks wants to jump in.
Yeah, well,
yeah, we can. Yeah, go, Michael.
SMS doesn't have an open right now, right? There's no, you don't get it. It just doesn't, SMS doesn't register an open. And so all those stats that both Hannah and Aneesh mentioned are kind of estimates and correct, right? It's been like that for a long time. Coming soon, it's in beta right now at Twilio, is RCS. And I mean, it's a long story. It's been coming soon for a long time. It actually is coming soon now. RCS will include an open rate, but we'll need the Engaging Networks product team to kind of build towards RCS. but we're going to make it as simple as possible to do that. But RCS will have an open rate. It will also have some level of branding on the message, like who sent the message.
Perfect. That's great. That's exciting to know. And we're obviously on our end always looking to improve our integration and the product itself too. And whenever there's new things, for sure. So that's great. Another question here is, could you provide insights into how you achieved high SMS opt-in rates among existing donors on file for the initial opt-in campaign? Any tactics would be helpful. That's probably pointed more towards you, Hannah.
Yeah. For us, obviously we started with our engaged emailers, people who already really care about our cause and getting buy-in from them. And then from there, we've kind of been piggybacking off of existing things that we're doing that we know supporters already care about. So, if we're sending the annual report, there's always a little button at the bottom that's like update your contact preferences. And within that, we have the SMS. So we also have our supporter hub, and you can add your SMS number there when people are updating their recurring gifts or going to get their tax receipts. It's in there for them. And then in addition, anytime we do any lead generation campaigns, we add the SMS opt-in field below it so that people can optionally add in when they're getting their free download of something that we've provided to them. So just making sure it's always a thought in whatever you're doing, just making sure it's present and there for them. And then sending direct emails that are like, hey, join I think our first one was called like Let's Text. And it's really short and sweet. Sign up on this specific sign up form that's just for opt-in, so they don't have to like first name, last name, email, address, SMS opt-in. It was just first name, SMS. And that way it was a little less work for them to fill out the form. And we also did the Engaging Networks. I'm forgetting all my terms today, but where you can chain it so that when you click on it, a button from the email, it automatically populates their first name and whatever data we have on them, so that it's even faster for them to opt in.
That's perfect. So just being very clear, essentially, lots of links, lots of transparency as far as the opt-in goes. That makes a lot of sense.
To add one thing, and just to repeat a little, but like to articulate it in a slightly different way. Like, so Hannah was perfect. Add like the SMS option to like basically every form, right? So like anybody that's signing up for anything is getting the option to sign up for SMS. So I've described that, but great. The other thing to think about is, and both the other speakers alluded to this, but anything that's not clickable, right? So that's TV, radio, print, press release, live events, podcasts, Instagram sometimes, right? Some socials, anything that's not clickable, people will be more likely to text in than they are to click a URL because it's not clickable. And I think Engaging Networks has a tool where you can text in, great, you're subscribed to mobile, now reply with your email address, and then they're subscribe to email. So everybody said it, but that's another way to think about it. Any non-clickable out-of-home media, stuff like that, use SMS as the email collection tool.
That's a great tip. That's a really good tip. And keeping them all part of the same ecosystem of communications you're trying to get to them. So that's great. Somebody asked a question here that I think is really interesting. Is curious to know if you have seen any organizations use SMS successfully for mid-level programs, higher end donors, as opposed to those lower end donors that are a little more common probably in SMS campaigns. So what type of engagement's being used? Have you seen that? I'll just kind of let anybody who wants to jump into that if you have any kind of response to that.
Yeah, I've seen it work incredibly well for mid-level and even high dollar donors. I think the biggest distribution there is you want to mirror some of your email creative there and make it a more cultivation tool than a direct fundraising tool. So I know we talked about a nearly 50-50 split between fundraising and non-fundraising content. For a mid-level audience, I'd recommend more of maybe a 75-25 split. So 75% cultivation engagement and 25% fundraising, just so you're really fostering those relationships and they're not feeling like an ATM, because there are organizations that use SMS and make it a little too transactional, whereas there are great SMS programs that talk to mid-level and high dollar folks via SMS. You just want to make sure that you're taking the time and consideration to build those relationships over SMS, similarly to the way you do it over email.
That's great. And honestly, really unexpected. I feel like that's, I don't know that I would ever make a large donation through SMS, but it's what we all do things that way now with our phones, and links through text. I get it. That makes
Well,
sense. Michael, did you have something?
yeah, well, this is like another bigger conversation, right? So I understand the data that Anish showed and agree with it, but like I'm guessing, Anish, that is like last click attribution, right? Where like these people clicked and made a donation after SMS versus email and stuff like that. Where I think, and I've been like pitching this for a long time, I think if you look at from the donor perspective, like how do people give if they're email and SMS subscribers, regardless of what was the last link they clicked? Like I'm guessing that at mid-level or anywhere, it's going to be much higher everything for an email and SMS subscriber versus an email only or direct mail only person. So I think slicing the data that way would be interesting to look at.
It's a great distinction to make there. And Hannah, I saw you come off mute. Was there something you wanted to add?
I was just going to give an example that we did receive a $2,000. I don't know what mid-level. I know mid-level changes for us. It's 1 to 5,000. We did receive a $2,000 mid-level gift off of a tax time SMS campaign last year, and it was a text that we had said, "Hey, I'm not sure if you saw our email, but you only have X amount of hours until you can give," and they clicked off that. And so I think targeting, like sending it to people who opened your email but didn't take an action, and sending them an SMS with the prompt of them thinking about all the materials they've received. I think it was helpful, and I spoke to that person. It was helpful. They were like, "I wanted to make a donation. I just forgot. Like I just needed a reminder." And it was a very soft ask. It wasn't like give X amount. It was just, "Hey, not sure if you saw our email, but like wanted to link you towards this resource," and they gave off that.
That's really smart. I love that tactic. That would work on me, I think, too, in that scenario. Related, unrelated to what we were just talking about here. Someone saying they're based in the US and just launched their SMS program this year during a big election year, obviously. Did you see SMS engagement drop because people are just so darn like tired of receiving all the election text messaging and just everything in that regard? It's starting to slow down now, but like, was there a big drop off, or was it unaffected? What did the trends kind of say? And I'll kind of maybe ask you, Aneesh, and anybody else who wants to kind of jump in there.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in with what I've seen. I think 2024 has been a difficult year for non-funding or nonprofit fundraising across the board. I don't think SMS, from my experience, has taken the hit that some of the other channels have taken, like paid media and like email. However, there have been slight downturns in terms of engagement, but I haven't seen an increase in unsubscribe rate on SMS programs or email programs, really.
That's promising. Good. Any other insights there that anybody wants to add, or does that resonate? Yeah. Okay. That's great. Okay, we got another question here. We had originally planned to start testing and piloting SMS this spring with the goal to build up the list with opt-ins and pilot to our engaged supporters in the summer, but due to delays, they still don't have it set up. Would you recommend we still try to incorporate SMS fundraising into upcoming holiday, kind of into your campaigns with a shortened timeline, or should it hold off? Is that too big of a hill to climb, or is it very doable? Like as far as like going and integrating that at this stage into their end of year campaign? Any thoughts on that as far as time and bandwidth go to set this up from scratch?
I can just say from my experience, we also did it quite quickly. I think we found out about SMS in August and we were launched by November. So but I spent a lot of time double checking the opt-in stuff that I think now, having done it, I could have trusted that process and gotten us through it a little faster. I did work directly with Michael on a lot of the questions I had, and he was very helpful. And so I think it's possible. I think it's doable. The other thing is once it's set up, it is so easy. Like it takes no time to write a text, and it takes no time. You don't have to, design a banner and do all the things you have to do for email. It's really fast to send. And so once it's set up, the timing of getting it out is so little, and your return will be great. So I would say if you have the capacity to go ahead and try and get it up, and again, if it's only 1 or 2 texts for the holiday season, it's a great test to see what your supporters are doing. And I have a work back schedule template that I used for this. So if anyone is interested in that resource, I would be happy to share that were all the steps that I took to get us launched.
That's amazing. Thanks, Hannah. And I'll put that out there. If you are interested in Hannah's template, reach out to me and I'll just get that to Hannah, and if that's easier, since you've been getting emails from me about this webinar. So feel free to do that if you're interested. Good insights there. We got about 5 minutes left, and I have one more question, unless anybody else has one that comes in that I wanted to ask kind of everyone here. And it feels very timely. But basically, how can nonprofits craft messages that don't feel intrusive or overwhelming, especially when asking for donations over SMS? Like, how can you really make an effective campaign? And I think we touched on a few elements of that, but I'm speaking, I guess the question I have is really about the message itself and how you craft it, whether it's length or content. But what are some of the best ones you've seen, the most effective? All of you having done this a while now, what are some of the most effective ones you've seen?
I can go first, yeah.
Yeah.
For me, I think it's about thinking about SMS as part of a longer journey and making sure that it's playing the role that you want it to play. So for us, I think something that was really effective was last year, our Giving Tuesday campaign. We sent a text out to our supporters, just letting them know that we had a match. There wasn't actually an ask. We were just like, oh my gosh, this is really exciting news for us. We wanted to announce that we have a match. Can't wait for this giving season. Learn more about us at our website. And we didn't get any donations off that. But then when our ask came out, I think people had been like, I know this number. I'm familiar with it. I've seen their resources. I heard about the match. And it was easier for them to make that leap. And then the other thing that really worked for us is we work directly with our youth ambassadors who are wonderful. And so we use their content for the SMS. So it'll be like, hi, I'm John from Children's Aid Foundation of Canada. I'm a youth ambassador. Tell a little bit about their story, even like a selfie photo with them. And then that you can attach to the SMS, and then we send it. And I think that was a great way for people to feel like they're having a genuine connection with someone who is an ambassador for an organization. So first person storytelling did work for us too.
Those are great ones. Love that. Personalizing things is always good. Michael, do you have something you want to?
Well, I think Hannah said this in her presentation, but especially when you're starting out, just have the SMS complement the email and the other communications, right? Like, it's simpler because you already have all the messaging and you're just paring it down. And then your schedule, you just don't have to create entirely new campaigns, especially at the onset. And the SMS effectively acts as like a little post-it note that goes on. It says like, oh yeah, let me go watch the video in the email, right? Or read that whole email that I got the ping about. So I would start that way. Sorry, and it's been a long time, but we've seen a lift on donations happening over email when one group received a text message reminder compared to another group that didn't. All SMS opted in people, but half the people got the text message reminder and half didn't. And the email donation rate increased on that.
Really great points. We are in an attention-based economy, so you got to get through the layers there. That's really a really good point. Aneesh, is there anything you want to add as far as like some of the best things you've seen that are really effective on that front?
Yeah, I mean, I'd also say, and this might seem counterintuitive, but don't be afraid of length and don't be afraid of MMSs. Add a graphic, add a GIF, add a video. Those really boost engagement rates. And if you have a good story to tell, I'd say tell it even over SMS. I've seen really successful SMSs or MMS text messages that are 320, 560 characters long. So don't shy away from length if that's something that your audience responds to. Your audience best, and it can really cut through the noise and work well.
That's great. I love that as our final, your audience best. Go with your gut. I think that's a really great kind of guiding star to go into your SMS campaign. So thank you everyone for being here. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Hannah. Thank you, Aneesh. Really appreciate it. And hopefully everyone can have some really successful campaigns here going into the end of the year. But I'll leave it at that. And thanks everyone for being here.